Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're finally cutting through all that intense tribalism and the deafening marketing noise to look at the hard, objective data behind the blockchain scalability wars. I mean, if you're tired of the hype and those endless toxic Twitter battles, and you just want to know what's actually going on under the hood, you are absolutely in the right place.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Because if you've been in the crypto space for even 10 minutes, you've undoubtedly seen these exact claims. Every single white paper out there promises Visa-level scale. Every Twitter thread turns into this massive battlefield of people just trashing the other guy's throughput. It's exhausting, right? But here's the fundamental problem. They're all measuring completely different things. When they say TPS, or finality, they're really just playing a massive game of semantics to make sure their specific chain looks like the absolute best.
So, to actually understand why this happens, we have to look at a fundamental law of blockchain physics, which was brilliantly defined by researchers like Vitalik Buterin and Silvio Micali, the Scalability Trilemma. The principle is simple, but man is it ruthless. A blockchain can only achieve two of three features: decentralization, security, and scalability, at the exact same time. It's like a giant puzzle where the pieces just won't all fit together perfectly. Achieving incredibly high speeds inherently means you're going to have to sacrifice either the decentralization of the network or its overall security. You literally just can't have the whole shebang.
So here's our roadmap for this explainer. We're going to act as your totally neutral arbiter today. We'll start with the marketing lie, move on to the real speed metrics, put the contenders side by side, uncover those hidden trade-offs, and finally, reveal the blockchain endgame. Let's get to it.
Starting off with Section 1, the marketing lie. Let's expose the tricks of the trade and how these projects completely redefine words to fit their narratives.
Look closely at the marketing deception happening right here. Take Solana, for example. You'll constantly see banners claiming 3,000 transactions per second. But when you really break down that data, a whopping 80% of those transactions are literally just validators voting on the state of the network. Only 20% are real user actions, like actually swapping tokens or minting an NFT. Ethereum, on the other hand, doesn't even count consensus votes in its TPS at all. Honestly, if it did, its TPS would instantly 10x on paper, and their marketing team would have an absolute field day. They're quite literally playing by entirely different rulebooks.
Which brings us right to Section 2, the real speed metrics. We need to define what actually matters here.
If we want to evaluate these networks without falling for the empty chain fallacy, we've got to have a standardized vocabulary. So there are basically four types of TPS. You've got theoretical TPS, which is just a lab environment max. Real TPS is your 24-hour average. Peak TPS is the 1-second max during really heavy congestion. But the crucial point here, you should always be looking at user TPS. This metric totally excludes the network spam and validator votes and only counts actual user actions. From now on, whenever you see a speed claim, I want you to immediately ask, okay, but TPS of what exactly?
And that leads us to another massive area of confusion. Let's ask the question, latency versus finality. Like, what is the actual difference between these two?
Simply put, latency is just how fast a transaction feels to you. It's the block time. It's how quickly you see that little pending bubble pop up on your screen. But finality is when a transaction is completely 100% irreversible. Think about the so what here. A 400 millisecond block on Solana feels incredibly snappy to use, but it's fundamentally different from Ethereum's 12-minute finality. True finality is really about how many millions of dollars it would actually cost an attacker to reverse your transaction. And in that regard, Ethereum's 12-minute checkpoint is absolutely the strongest.
Okay, let's move on to Section 3, contenders side by side. It's time to pull up the Q1 2026 scorecard.
Let's strip away all the Twitter opinions and just look at the raw mainnet data under stress. Neutrally speaking, Solana clearly dominates on sheer speed here at 600 user TPS, plus it has incredibly low costs at fractions of a cent. But then look at Ethereum. While its user TPS is only 12, it completely outpaces the rest of the pack in decentralization with 10,000 nodes, giving it unmatched ironclad security. You've also got layer 2s like Base and other chains like BNB sitting kind of in the middle there.
The sheer gap in throughput is massive, with Solana completely dwarfing the rest. But hey, don't count the others out just yet. The key takeaway here is that layer 2s, like Base running at 45 TPS, are hitting this incredible sweet spot. They're fast enough and cheap enough for like 99% of normal users, while still inheriting Ethereum's underlying security.
Now we hit Section 4, the hidden trade-offs. Because you really have to ask, What is the true cost of this scale?
These are the costs that definitely do not make it onto the marketing banners. Let's ground this abstract concept of throughput in everyday hardware for a second. To run an Ethereum node, a basic $500 home PC can easily handle its block size every 12 seconds. But if you want to process 48 million gas every 400 milliseconds on Solana, you literally need a 12-core data center server. True speed requires physical data centers, entirely pushing everyday users out of running nodes.
Yeah, $5,000. And guys, that is just the upfront hardware cost for a single Solana node. That's not even including the massive monthly internet bill. When the barrier to entry is that high, super fast chains naturally and almost unavoidably trend toward centralization. Only professionals and huge institutions can actually afford to keep the network running compared to the thousands of everyday people who can run a slower chain on a basic laptop.
And this ties directly into something called the Nakamoto coefficient, which is basically the minimum number of entities required to halt a chain. Ethereum has over 1 million validators, making it insanely difficult for governments or bad actors to coerce the network. It's got very high censorship resistance. Compare that to the BNB chain, which relies on just 21 validators. Yes, BNB is super fast and cheap, but it carries a much higher censorship risk.
Then there's the whole stability trade-off. Think about this. Bitcoin has run for 15 years with 0 days of downtime. Ethereum? 9 years, 0 downtime. Slower, simpler consensus mechanisms are just incredibly stable. Conversely, when you combine highly complex consensus mechanisms with heavy hardware requirements, you inevitably get bugs. Solana experienced 7 major outages between 2021 and 2023. BSC had a complete halting event in 2022. You are quite literally trading stability for speed.
So, where does this leave us? Let's jump into Section 5, the blockchain endgame. This is where the industry is actively heading right now. Believe it or not, the scalability wars are effectively ending. Why? Because the two major architectural philosophies are actually converging. On one side, you have monolithic chains like Solana, where one chain just does everything. It gives users a super simple, seamless experience, but at the cost of running really expensive nodes. On the other side, you have the modular approach, championed by Ethereum. It uses a Layer 1 purely for security and Layer 2s for the fast apps. It's a bit more of a complex user experience with bridges, but it has unmatched security. And the really fascinating part? They're basically borrowing from each other now. Solana is getting its own Layer 2s, and Ethereum is aggressively working to make all its L2s feel like a single, simple chain. So, how do we navigate this today? Well, here's your practical guide based on actual real-world use cases, completely stripping away the hype. If you're settling over $1 million, you use Ethereum Layer 1 for sure. You want that 12-minute, unstoppable finality. If you're doing standard DeFi trades, use Layer 2s like Arbitrum or Base for that deep liquidity and super low fees. For high-speed gaming or NFT mints, Solana or Polygon POS is your best bet. And for instant micropayments, Solana, Base, or Bitcoin's Lightning Network are perfect for that.
Which brings us to the ultimate question. When you wipe away all that tribal marketing and those lofty white paper promises, what do you truly value for your next transaction? Is it lightning speed? Is it the absolute lowest cost possible? Or is it unstoppable, decentralized security? The next time you make a move in crypto, use this new scorecard we built today. Apply it to your own usage, and I challenge you, absolutely refuse to pick your network based on a logo ever again. Thanks so much for exploring the data with me today. Keep asking the hard questions, and I'll catch you in the next explainer.